Okay, so I think we will get started now with our elementary school breakout session. But before we move on, I think I should discuss some housekeeping. Oh, and if you're looking for the bit.ly link, it's case sensitive, so be mindful of that. Please write down carefully or copy and paste. Okay, so if you are joining us a little late tonight, or if you missed the housekeeping portion at the beginning of the presentation, we want you to know that if for any reason we get disconnected right now, the links will be tweeted into the accounts for the Peels District School Board and the PIC _ PDSB within the 10 minutes of being disconnected. Subtitles are available in simplified Chinese, Arabic, French, Hindi, Urdu, and Vietnamese. To turn on the live captions and subtitles, you can go to captions/subtitles on in your video controls. To change the caption language, select settings and captions/subtitles and choose the language you want. Okay, we also want you to know that there is a large panel of people joining us tonight, some of whom speak different languages too, Punjabi, for example, in case we need those services. All right, and the list here you see is to show you the names of the people we have supporting this specific session. We have Jessica Gottlieb. She is a clinical psychologist, and she will be our presenter for tonight. In addition to Jessica, we also count with the support of a variety of moderators and parents who will be available to answer any questions you may have. So we turn the time now to Jessica. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paula, for the introduction, and hello to everyone, and good evening, and thank you for joining us. So our first big question is, what's the difference between mental health and mental illness? The truth is, the terms mental health and mental illness are sometimes confused. So what we'll do first is we'll watch a quick video together that will help us answer this question. While you're watching this video, think of things in our lives that can help promote positive mental health. If you like, type 1 or 2 word answers into the Q&A bar. Next slide.
Mental health is an important part of our overall well-being and is something we all can play a role in addressing. It's a subject that deserves our attention. According to Statistics Canada, 1 in 3 Canadians will experience one of 6 mental illnesses or substance use disorders in their lifetime. Other research for the Mental Health Commission of Canada shows that, in any given year, 1 in 5 Canadians will experience a mental illness or addiction. Awareness has been raised about the importance of helping those experiencing mental illness to get access to treatments that will improve their mental health. But what about the 4 in 5, or 80% of the population, who will not experience a mental illness or an addiction? What about their mental health? Are they mentally healthy? First, what is mental health? There is some confusion about what mental health means, and this can have an impact on how we address mental health. For example, a lot of people think that when we talk about mental health, we're talking about mental illness, that these subjects are one and the same. Really, mental health and mental illness are two different things. Mental illnesses are conditions where our thinking, mood, and behaviors severely and negatively impact how we function in our lives. Mental illnesses can include depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and other mood disorders. Mental health, on the other hand, like the term health, is a positive concept. It relates to our ability to enjoy life and to manage it in ways that help us reach our goals and cope with stresses. It's a sense of spiritual and emotional well-being. This means mental health is more than the absence of mental illness. Now, if mental health and mental illness are two different ideas, what's the relationship to one another? Sometimes people picture mental health and mental illness being two ends of a continuum, as if one is the opposite of the other. But a lot of research shows that we should think about mental health and mental illness as separate yet interconnected concepts that need to be looked at, measured, and responded to differently. We should think of them on two separate continua. So here's what the mental health and mental illness continua really look like. On the mental illness continuum, one end runs from severe mental illness to no mental illness. On the mental health continuum, one end runs from poor mental health to good mental health. This model shows that a person without mental illness is not necessarily mentally healthy. They may be feeling down or experiencing a high level of stress because of life's circumstances. But it also shows us that we can all strive for good mental health, that even individuals with mental illness can have good mental health. Let me give you an example. This is Tara. Tara has been diagnosed with depression, a potentially severe mental illness. However, her depression is now under control. She's on medication and sees her psychotherapist regularly. She likes her job, feels capable of completing her work, and is able to eat right, sleep well, and exercise. She feels comfortable and respected in the places where she lives and works, and she feels like people in her life love her and understand her. Despite her mental illness, Tara has good mental health. So how do we promote mental health? How do we make more people mentally healthy? While there are things we can do to take care of our own mental health, the community where we live, work, and play has a big impact on our mental health. A community can promote mental health when its members have access to good jobs, incomes, and housing. A mentally healthy community makes people feel safe and secure and like they belong, because it's inclusive of people with different ages, backgrounds, genders, languages, and sexualities. There are simple things that you can do to help create a community that is mentally healthy. Know and accept that everyone faces daily challenges. Get involved in your community and give back. Support and include different types of people in your community. Finally, there are many things that you can do to take care of your own mental health, whether you have a mental illness or not. Know and accept that life can be challenging. Create purpose in your life by learning and trying new activities, like starting a hobby and setting realistic goals. Create healthy, trusting relationships with people who accept and support you. Know and accept your strengths and weaknesses. Accept yourself and others. It's the basis of self-esteem. And learn to recognize and understand that you and others have good and bad feelings. By increasing good mental health, all of these things contribute to the overall health of Canadians. Like the World Health Organization famously said, there is no health without mental health.
So, mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes their own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to their community. Indigenous teachings remind us that mental wellness is a balance of the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional parts of ourselves, and is enriched when individuals experience purpose, hope, belonging, and meaning in their lives. The video reminds us that a person who lives with a mental illness can experience good mental health. And it's also true that we can all experience times of poor mental health without a mental health condition when we face times of difficulty, loss, or great stress. A child and teen's mental health is just as important as their physical health when it comes to their success in school, in friendships, and in life. The same is true for adults. We all need to take good care of our mental health. Next slide. So when we look at the impacts on children, youth, and caregivers over the past year, first we'll look at what the youth are saying. So young people are telling us that their mental health has been impacted by the pandemic. In a survey conducted in the early days of the pandemic, nearly 2/3 of youth said that their mental health had gotten worse since the pandemic. Over 60% of youth reported feeling a combination of upset, worried, sad, and angry about the abrupt end to the school year, about the ability to see their friends, and uncertainty about the future. They also reported feeling an increased sense of isolation. A study looking at all parents across Ontario looked at also what parents are saying. But before I go into that, I do want to note the context of our Peel community, right? We have many diverse cultures in our community, and sometimes what that looks like is the extended family is really part of our big picture. Sometimes that looks like parents include their older parents in their home, so they're taking care of both the elders as well as their children. In some other cases, it may be that because of the pandemic, we've actually lost our parents in our home, which means a loss of that additional caring and additional child support. I really say that just to recognize different positions that we all may be in and the additional stressors that this pandemic has brought upon us. But overall, across the province, 1 in 3 caregivers reported a moderate to high level of anxiety on a daily basis. The most significant concerns were related to managing their children's remote learning, managing their children's screen time, and managing their children's anxiety as stress, as well as balancing household routines, work, and parenting. For parents of young students and those with special needs, many experience significant challenges with remote learning, working with a screen or device and not being able to be with their teachers and their peers as normal. Some parents have concerns regarding the learning gaps for virtual students versus students learning in person, and are reporting the heavy burden that falls on parents as well as older siblings to assist young students in their virtual learning. On the other hand, I think it's important to recognize that many people have come together and we've witnessed amazing stories of caring, collaboration, determination, and hope. I think of the collective banging of pots and pans to support our frontline workers. We saw property owners waiving rent for families in times of need. And we saw collective helping for those who were ill or elderly, getting groceries or running errands. This coming together effect has shown to have a protective effect on everyone's mental health in shared times of distress. Next slide. So, what can parents and caregivers do to support their children's mental health and well-being? Next slide. So, the first is what I call taking our own temperature as parents. For any of you who have been on an airplane, what do they always say? In case of emergency, put on your own oxygen mask before you tend to anyone else. The same is true in parenting, especially in a pandemic. Another thing that comes to mind is the phrase that we can't pour from an empty cup. So it's important to ask ourselves, how am I currently feeling and how am I coping with my own emotions right now and the demands placed on me? I say this because we as parents need to feel well and be well in order to do well as parents. As you can see in the graphic here, some days we might feel green and thriving, and other days we may feel more red and in crisis. But as best as we can, it's important to engage with our children the most around their emotions and well-being when we are feeling green or yellow. So what does it look like to take care of our own needs as parents in the middle of a pandemic? Self-care often puts the onus on us as individuals. If we just eat healthy enough, get enough sleep, or take enough bubble baths, we'll be okay. We know that this may not be the case and that thinking of self-care this way is probably too narrow and not always helpful. So here are some notions about self-care that I do think apply. For example, self-care can be saying no. With the added stress of the pandemic, it's likely not realistic that we'll be able to say yes to everything as we did before. Self-care can also be asking for what we need. This can look like a sharing of tasks and responsibilities around the house. Sharing maybe not only in completing the tasks, but even just in remembering them, right? The mental load that comes from remembering and managing the tasks. It can be an effective way to practice self-care for everyone in the family. Self-care can also look like gratitude, taking a moment to pause and name the things that we're grateful for. It also helps us stay focused in the present compared to fixating on future anxieties. Self-care can also be changing our expectations in the short term. Above all else, our children's needs during the pandemic are to feel loved and to feel safe. It's possible to focus on the way that we're helping our children feel those two things, loved and safe. That'll let us let go of some of the guilt around things related to maybe screen time or less rigid phone rules or sleep routines. But again, focusing on how we're helping our children feel that love and support and structure that they need. Next slide. So the second way to support youth mental health in the pandemic is to be an emotion coach for our children. Well, what does that mean? Firstly, we have to notice our children experiencing an emotion. And sometimes that may sound simple, but it can also feel really hard with all of these other things on our plates. So let's think. How do we know when our children are angry? Will they walk up to us and say, "Hey, I'm angry"? Maybe, probably not always, but maybe they let us know by slamming doors, by stomping feet, by balling up their fists, by crying. If our child's upset, how do we know? Maybe, again, they'll cry. Maybe they'll be isolating, staying in their room. Maybe they'll sulk or they'll frown. If our child is worried, how will we know? Maybe we'll notice them asking a lot of questions, wanting to stay by us, having more rapid and shallow breathing, or maybe just looking antsy and fidgety. Let's go back to that first example of anger. So maybe our child looks red in the face and has just slammed the door. Again, if we're noticing their anger, we can take the time to recognize and connect with them about that, right? We can validate their emotions and help name them. Right? We could say something like, "You seem angry. What's up?" And this approach really allows the child to lead while we're supporting them and naming their emotions. I think a lot of the time we get nervous about what we'll say. Maybe we'll get it wrong. But if our kid's not angry and perhaps they're sad, they'll let us know. And if they aren't sure, then like what we just did, we can identify some behaviors that let us know that they might be mad, like slamming a door, their fist balled, and that helps them label what's going on for them. But really, this is just an opportunity to connect and engage with our child around their feelings. And probably leads to a more helpful conversation than, "Why are you slamming the door?" Don't do that. Our kids will let us know what's going on, but we can provide them some emotional support. So with our kids, we connect, and we validate their emotions. We want to recognize that their concerns and their feelings and let them know that all of their feelings are okay. Right? Some examples of ways we can connect and empathize with our kids is by saying things like, I can see that you're hurting. That's an awful feeling. Thank you for sharing that with me. My heart hurts for you. You're having a really tough day. I get it. Or that makes sense. I'd feel that way too. But by all of that, we're letting them know that we're here for them. We want to listen. We want to understand. And when we connect with our kids about their emotions before we provide that practical support, then it soothes that transition and it allows us to engage in that coping together. Right? We're giving them now those opportunities to participate in something that probably feels helpful. Next slide. So, when I was talking about coping, one of our many examples that we can think of as a practical kind of next step for our children may be a relaxation activity. So that's something we'll do together now. And why are relaxation exercises helpful? Well, when stress becomes overwhelming, our body releases hormones that causes things like increased heart rate, shallow, quick breathing, and tense muscles. It's our body's stress response. So when we're noticing stress or big emotions coming up, relaxation activities can help us take the edge off, slow down, release muscle tension, and be grounded in the present moment. So this poster is one from a set designed from School Mental Health Ontario. And be sure to visit the link at the bottom right to access the full poster set, including exercises focused on gratitude, deep breathing, and more. Tense and Relax is an activity to help release tension. So let's take a moment now, wherever you are, whatever kind of day you're having, to focus on well-being. Let's begin with a few deep breaths. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Now, squeeze your hands into fists and hold for 3, 2, 1. Now relax your hands. Notice the different feeling of tensed and relaxed. Now, push your shoulders up to your ears like a turtle going back into its shell and hold for 3, 2, 1. Now relax, letting the tension wash away. Now push your heels into the floor and squeeze your toes for 3, 2, 1. And release, wiggling your toes out. Last, tense your stomach muscles for 3, 2, 1. And release, taking another deep breath in, deep breath out. And last time, deep breath in, deep breath out. Great job, everyone. We hope you enjoyed doing the tense and relax together with us. Remember, you can do the tense and relax anytime, anywhere to help you feel more relaxed. Next slide. So, in the same way, we try to take care of our physical health by eating well, drinking lots of water. We need to pay attention to our mental health and not take it for granted. Today, we're going to go through our top 5 simple strategies that we can all use to support our mental health. While I talk about each of these, it would be great for you to share any positive things that you do as a family or things you do in your culture that create or support your well-being. I'll check in with the moderator in a bit to hear about some of these. So I'll let you know that this model is the Big 5, which is a model developed in the UK. When practiced regularly, the Big 5 are meant to improve one's sense of personal well-being. As I talk about some examples here, again, feel free to share some things in the chat that you and your family do to try and keep well. I'll ask the moderators for some example as we go along. So the first one here is to connect. These are activities that build connection within ourselves and one another. We talk, we listen, be there for others, and feel connected. Strong social ties are essential for our well-being. Even in these COVID times, it's important to stay connected to our friends, our family, our cultural and faith communities, our sports and our teams, our groups. Try to reach out and phone or text a friend. Maybe during COVID, you've had a virtual or drive-by birthday party. Maybe this is a time where you've been able to connect more to your spiritual life by prayer or by journaling or by family storytelling. Also, next, we'll focus on being active, right? That can look like moving any way you'd like, dancing, walking, even cleaning the house. Movement and exercise does not necessarily have to be intense for you to feel good and experience the positive impacts. What is most important is that you discover an activity that you enjoy, one that suits you, your level of fitness, and your mobility. And I want us to think, what are some creative ways to be active together as a family? Our third practice is to keep learning. So that looks like embracing new experiences, learning about ourselves, our culture, our identity, things that enhance our values, our passions, learning skills and strategies to build resilience and cope with stress, manage our feelings, stay positive, motivated, maintain healthy relationships. When I think of learning during the pandemic, how many people learned to make bread or learn to make banana bread? These are all hobbies or interests that we're pursuing to maintain our mental health. Also, the next practice is giving back. We can give our time, our words, our presence. We can discover our own strengths and gifts and then give those back to those around us, especially to those in need. We can express gratitude and kindness, and really helping others adds to our own happiness and is quite contagious. Our last practice is to take notice. Notice the present moment and the simple things that give you joy. Notice your thoughts, feelings, and things you're grateful for, and the way you talk to yourself inside. Notice also when you might need to reach out for help to stay mentally well. We all need help from time to time. Make it a practice to notice at least one thing you're grateful for each day and spend some time thinking about it. Our minds often automatically go to our problems because we're wired to survive, but we can train our minds to shift by focusing on something we're grateful for. And this has been shown to help us feel better. I want to take a moment to go to our moderators and ask us if there's any feedback or any ideas that our community here has provided to help us support our mental health.
Yes, Jessica, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
It's Valerie here. We've got great ideas that came through the chat. Families play board games together. Some families just talk with each other and help each other when they're feeling pain. Dance parties, tabletop hockey, family movie night. And this is an interesting idea. They call it a talking can, where they each share what they learned during the day, what made them smile, and what they're grateful for.
Amazing. Those are all excellent ideas. I personally love the idea of a dancing party. And we can go to the next slide. So the third way to support youth mental health is to recognize when more help might be needed. As parents, there's no one better to understand when something is feeling different or not right with your child than you. As a psychologist, I'm often asked to share the most common signs of mental health problems in youth or children. And this might include increased irritability, sadness, anxiety or panic, difficulties falling or staying asleep, overeating or undereating, concentration or motivation difficulties, a pattern of overreacting to minor problems, difficulties bouncing back from stressors, and social withdrawal or difficulty getting along with others. If given enough time, we could generate quite a long list of possibilities. So for parents, I really recommend paying attention to 4 different domains, again, knowing that you know your child best. So the first would be frequency. So how often is the behavior occurring? And what is the situation that it's occurring in? For example, experiencing sadness after death, even prolonged, is not the same as sadness that comes out of the blue. We also want to think about duration. So how long has the behavior been present? Does it last longer than we would expect? For example, maybe anxiety that doesn't come down or come back to its typical level after tests or exams. We can think about the intensity. So is the behavior I'm seeing more intense than it was before? Does the upset seem disproportionate to the situation? And finally, we want to look at the impact. So how is the behavior I'm seeing impacting my child's life? And life in a range of domains, so academic, social, and family. We also recognize that children with special education or communication needs may present differently. Again, you know your child best. If you're not sure what is to be expected, you can consult with someone from your school team or a professional in the community. Next slide. So, the 4th way to support youth mental health is to know where to get help and to ensure that your child does get help if we feel that they need it. So specifically in schools, there are many in-school supports available, and we want to make sure you're aware of all of them, right? We can go to administrators, so our principals or our vice principals. Some schools may have guidance counselors. Those are definitely people we could reach out to, as well as our classroom teachers, our in-school support personnel, as well as accessing school professional services as needed. Each school is supported by a social worker, a psychoeducational consultant like myself, and a speech language pathologist. What we want to think about is, do we know who we can get support from in our school, and who is our child close to in the school that they can turn to for support and connection? Next slide. So we can also think about getting support with our community, and that can look like a lot of different things. First, we want to think of who are the people within our immediate family or our extended family who might be a support? Who is our child close to? We can also reach out to family physicians. We can reach out to, we can reach out to faith leaders, family agencies, agencies specific to mental health and children's mental health. And you'll be receiving a detailed list of community supports and agencies. Also supports specific to different cultural and religious identities, such as Black families, South Asian families, families with students with special needs, just to name a few. Next slide. We also want to recognize that people do not reach out regarding their mental health for a variety of reasons. Stigma can be a barrier. Stigma is when someone sees you in a negative way because of your mental health struggles. Discrimination is when someone treats you in a negative way because of your mental health struggles. And social stigma and discrimination can make mental health problems worse and stop a person from getting the help that they need. Sometimes people worry they'll be judged or treated differently if they reach out for help. It also may not be a practice within your community to share about personal issues like mental health struggles with others, let alone someone outside of your family or community. We recognize that. We also recognize that schools are now seen as an excellent environment to prioritize student mental health and deliver mental health services to children and youth. Despite the advancements, the mental health needs of all students have not been fully met, especially the mental health and well-being needs of marginalized students. Often their needs are more poorly understood, poorly served, under-resourced, and delivered in a non-culturally relevant or responsive way. We want to do this work together. We want all to be a part of the solution. Now Paula, our parent rep, will comment on her experiences and share some more information with us.
Thank you, Jessica. Okay, so when talking about mental health in the pandemic, I'm going to let you know I have 4 children. They're all 11 years old and under. And it's been challenging having everybody home all the time. My husband's also working from home. So he takes the basement, I go upstairs with the children, and I do school online too. So I have to do my stuff and I have to try and help them with the internet, and it's hard. Um, and I understand that there are ups and downs, and that a lot of people have it probably a lot more difficult than I do. And again, there's the cultural factors and how we all experience things differently. I am Hispanic, and I haven't hugged my parents for the past year, and that's not like us. Hispanic people, we hug, we kiss, we need physical contact. So that's been really hard. When we had the bubbles, my parents were in my sister's bubble because they babysit for her. So my in-laws were in our bubble, so that was fortunate. But right now we're reduced to not even that. When it comes to children too, again, for children, there are very different personalities. And you can tell when they're not being themselves. I think it's important for us parents to trust our gut and know when something may be wrong with them. Some of them may be willing to come up and talk to us, but some of them might not. They're just more shy and more private, and maybe you need to go after them and find out what's going on. I personally find that bedtime is the best time to talk to my children. Now it's a routine that we've established since they were little, so we used to read at night and not lay down with them in bed. But I find that when I lie down with them, they're more willing to open up, so you can ask them questions of how they're feeling and how they're liking online school, or my children are doing online school or in-person school, but it opens doors. We've also learned new things during the pandemic. I mean, everything hasn't been bad. They learned Kahoot. They've been playing Kahoot games, and they've been making them. And every Sunday evening, we play Kahoot as a family now. They make the games and we play them. I've also learned that I need to change my expectations, and that includes a lot of the time is letting go of the housework. So the house looks like a big explosion, but that's okay because, again, because of the pandemic, nobody's coming to my house, so don't need to worry about that. But I also realized that my children's emotional well-being is more important than a clean house all the time. We do clean up sometimes. And again, sometimes like I wonder, the families that are generational households, they have their parents and everything. And sometimes I'm a little jealous. Like, should we do that? Because they're together with their families. But I am sure that there are also challenges with living in an extended family or extended household relationship where you have to be together all the time. You don't have perhaps as much privacy. When it comes to self-care, sometimes as parents, we forget what it even is, self-care. So again, I know that perhaps my experience is different from everybody, but I am sure that we can all agree that it's been difficult. Hopefully we can all find positive things. My children have been learning new talents. They've been learning to play the ukulele. Anyhow, on the screen you can see that there's a list of several phone numbers, and they are provided for a variety. We want to represent the diversity that our community has. So please reach out to any of them if you're thinking any of them will connect, and they're all mostly available all the time. Maybe there are hours, but if you need help, also reach out to your school administrators if it's not urgent. But yeah, next slide, please. Okay, and again, here are more resources, more websites that you can visit for further information. I hope that you've learned a lot. I thank Jessica for the wonderful presentation that she gave just now. And I think we will turn our time over now to our moderators who will lead us on the question and answer period. And again, this event will be posted, the recording of it, on the board's website when as soon as it's available. Okay. Valerie, your time.
Yes, thank you very much, Paula, and thank you very much for sharing your own personal experience. I think it's very helpful for other parents and for us too to realize what different parents are going through, and we can appreciate that, like yourself who has extended family but hasn't seen them for a while because of the, our rules, I guess, not rules, but the importance of staying with just our single families right now. It's very difficult for people. So thanks for sharing that. So we do have some questions that have come in, and I know we have a panel of people behind the scenes here, that we have parents and administrators and other professionals that we will call on to answer your questions. So the first question that came through is, how do I know the difference between kind of like stress, such as the stress we experience with COVID, and actual challenges with coping skills? And how do we know really if there is something mentally wrong or if our loved one needs our help? So I'm wondering if we have Akanksha. Akanksha, if you could introduce yourself, and maybe would you be able to comment on that?
Yes, hi everyone. So my name is Akanksha Sharma, and I am a psychoeducational consultant here with our Peel District School Board. So this question relates to some of the material that we covered in our presentation, which is understanding when there might be reason to worry about mental health or address mental health. So it's a very common question. And a first step in recognizing whether you or your child is having difficulty, it might simply begin by paying attention to what's making you wonder about that. Is it a certain behavior, something they're saying, something you're noticing? So once you pay attention to the feeling or the behavior, you can then start to consider the 4 important pieces of information that help you kind of determine what's going on. So like mentioned before, the first would be frequency. Are you starting to see more or a new kind of behavior that's happening? So am I seeing an increase in the frequency? Am I seeing a change in the duration? So for example, yes, my child used to be tearful before, but now I find that it lasts for a very long time and he or she is having a hard time moving on from the littlest thing. So is it becoming harder to recover from the situation, or does your child seem like they're stuck in the situation? The third would be intensity. So does the reaction seem like it's more intense, or does the behavior or feeling seem like it's more intense than before? And the fourth important piece is impact. So, are you noticing that your child is having difficulty functioning in their everyday life? So keeping up with their schoolwork, their chores, their home life, their social connections compared to before, right? The other thing is that sometimes as caregivers, we can get stuck in, wondering about is something wrong with them, as opposed to thinking about what we consider to be a trauma-informed lens, which is what has happened here to cause these changes we are noticing, and how has it affected the person, and how can I support them? So even if it is COVID that's caused the changes, but you're seeing difficulties in everyday functioning, you're seeing an increase in, frequency of the behavior, intensity of the feelings or the behavior, then that says, okay, well, this might be a good time to kick in and boost mental health. So I hope that answers that question.
Thank you so much, Kasia. Yes. And I just want to review with people that we may not get to all the questions that you asked, but we'll try to do our best to get through some. And any questions that we don't get through will be posted on the peelschools.org following the event. So I'm going to move on. And we did have a question come in earlier from a parent who was somewhat concerned about her child. She said that the child is an only child, I believe, and they're very close to the parents, but when she feels hurt emotionally or physically, she sort of hides away. So I'm wondering, I know one of our administrators, Gurmeet Gill, is behind the scenes. Gurmeet, I wonder if you have some ideas for that parent.
Sure. I'll share my thoughts and ideas. Thank you for that question, first of all. In this situation, I would suggest, giving some space to your child. And once your child feels, the child is out of that state, then invite the child and talk to your daughter and say, what was bothering her. Sometimes when the students or the children, they do not have the language to express themselves, maybe giving the language, I feel. And then the child can, share, maybe complete the sentence, I feel this way because, or because of the age, we can also maybe, sharing or showing some pictures, how do you feel? And why are you feeling that way? And I would also suggest, I know as a parent, you're worried, when she goes to school, how your child is going to express her emotions. So in Peel District School Board, we have great, strategies in place. And even before she goes to school in kindergarten, there is always an opportunity for you to connect with the school and, meet the teachers. Like due to pandemic, it will be online as well, and you can share those concerns, and the school will be there to support. And so these are some of the strategies and thoughts that I feel that will be helpful.
Thank you, Gurmeet. I think those were excellent strategies that you gave about modeling how to express feelings, showing pictures as well to help the child express feelings, and just listening, I guess, listening to the child and seeing how they feel and doing it, when the child is feeling better. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. So the next question. They said, thank you for reviewing my question. Could you please share strategies for controlling aggressive behavior, shouting, banging doors, and resistance to any instructions that I might give them? So I'm going to ask Jessica, our facilitator for tonight's presentation. Jessica, would you mind commenting there for that parent?
Of course. So we know that strong feelings, intense emotions, and what seem like unpredictable moods are a normal part of development, especially during puberty, as our children's brains are still learning how to control and express emotions in a more grown-up way. Right? We know emotions are normal. So it's not about preventing or avoiding them, but helping our child learn how to respond to the emotions in an appropriate and safe way. So when we notice that our child is having difficulties controlling their aggressive behavior, again, like you said, perhaps they're shouting, banging doors, being resistant to instructions, some in-the-moment strategies that we would want to try is first, which I think can always be the most challenging, is controlling our own emotions and reactions. Right? If we notice ourselves experiencing intense emotions, we want to make sure that we're also taking deep breaths and taking a mental step back. Right? We want to try to maintain our calm, even if we don't feel calm on the inside. Right? We can also notice signs in our child that their anger is building and help them notice the signs as well. Right? Of course, each child is unique and you know your child best and what those signs may look like. Maybe it's irritability or frustration, impulsiveness, clenched fists or teeth. Maybe they feel flush. All of these things could be early signs to help our child redirect and possibly prevent that blowout or aggressive behavior we've been seeing. We also want to make sure we're listening for feelings that may be behind the anger or aggression and try to address really that emotional need. Right? Many of our kids are experiencing the feelings of loss or sadness and loneliness right now. And anger may actually be a secondary reaction, but not the first emotion that they've experienced. And that really is the root of the problem. What we also want to make sure is that we try not to escalate the situation, which is why, like I said at the beginning, we'll try to control our own emotions. Maybe that looks like waiting until things are calmer to discuss or give a consequence, right? Taking that step back doesn't mean we're giving in. We're just trying to give space to actually help the situation.
Great. Thank you very much, Jessica. I'm sure some of the parents behind the scenes could comment. Warda, have you have a comment you could make to other parents around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my kiddo is 7 years old. I have two kiddos, 5 and 7, and they've kind of been struggling since COVID and since the shutdown with big emotions. And we're still trying to figure out how to best deal with it. But one of the things that worked for my 7-year-old is kind of like to journal what has happened. So like, you know, when something happened, like we go through the different strategies that Dr. Gottlieb mentioned, but like kind of like the aftermath, kind of like trying to get ahead of the next big emotion. Like, you know, I'm getting him to write down what happened, how he feels about what happened, and kind of get him to come up with strategies himself of like how he's going to manage the next stressor or like, you know, similar situation. And it seems to be really working for him. So maybe that's a strategy that the parent that asked can work with their child to do.
Yeah, I love that idea too of consulting with the child. Like even when our children are small, we can kind of get them to come up with ideas as well. And I think that really gets their cooperation more often if we kind of work with them. Okay, so we have another question just came through, and it's around, I'm going to ask an administrator if they could chime in here. It says, how do we support our children with sudden changes in the class they've been attending? For example, their daughter's best friend is moving to another class, and let me see if I can get it here, and she's not taking this very well. I guess sounds like she's going to miss her friend, and she's due to return to school next week. How do I support her and myself with the challenges? I'm wondering if one of our administrators would weigh in on those. I'm sure you see lots of those kinds of situations.
Sure, Valerie, I can respond to that. This is again Gurmeet Gill. You know, we find it's always kind of challenging, you know, during reorganization when the students are moved from one class to another. And I always share with parents and children, you know, this will be an opportunity, you know, for your daughter to, you know, build more friendships within the class, even though, you know, the other student is going to in school, but she can still keep that friendship. And even though they are not in the same class, you can find ways still for both of them so they can connect and they can keep in touch with each other. And just sharing that, you know, a change sometimes happen, and this is, you know, what the choice the parents, her parents made. So that's why she will be going to a different class, but they can still be friends, and assuring that she will be also, you know, building more friendships within that class.
Great ideas. Again, I think that that's helpful, and always being with the child too around their feelings. Great. finding ways to connect. There's another comment for another administrator, finding ways to connect outside of the class. So seeing if those children can still connect remotely and keep their friendship, I think. Sure. All right, so I know we're getting close to our end time, so I'm just going to ask one more question, and this is really about accessing psychoeducational services. And so in the Peel board, the question is, can the Peel board provide access to a child psychologist once schools are reopened? So I'm going to ask Sarah Brackenbridge. I'll ask you, Sarah, you're a psychoeducational consultant. So can parents access you around concerns? And there's different concerns people are experiencing.
Sure, thanks, Val. And again, I'm Sarah Brackenridge, and I'm a psychoeducational consultant with the Peel board. School psychology staff are available for consultation and direct service in a variety of ways, even during school closures. So our services are available to students who attend in person and virtually. And psychology staff can work in consultation with teachers and parents to address student-specific needs. So they might provide psychoeducation to parents and school staff, safety planning, individual student counseling, or psychological assessment. And likewise, services from other professional student services personnel, including school social workers and our speech and language pathologists, remain available during these times. So if you feel that your child might benefit from this kind of support, whether your child is attending school online or in person, you can reach out to your child's principal and discuss when a referral might be appropriate. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, great. And as I said, we won't get to all the specific questions, but we will post these questions with answers. They will be posted after the event. So I do want to just ask one of our other great professionals back there, Roy Reed. Roy, I'm sort of putting you on the spot, and I said I wouldn't do that, but but I know you made a very good point around children's behavior, and we did have a question earlier too about how do I know if my nonverbal child is struggling, and also around commenting around the parent who had a child that was tended to hide away. So you had a great comment there. Can I put you on the spot?
Thanks, Valerie. No, not at all, actually. And thank you for the parent who so graciously allowed us to share our thoughts on the matter, especially regarding the child who is not really expressing their feelings. And so I do commend you for stepping up and actually looking at getting responses for that. So I always think that through our actions, and that goes for adults and children alike, that we conduct and we express ourselves in many different ways. And clearly, your child is expressing or saying something through her conduct and through her actions. And so I would really want to be able to dig into that a little bit more for what exactly and what need is that meeting also, because clearly it is. So as a young child, I think I could recall 5 years old, and this has been going on for a number of years. So there are ways in which children certainly express themselves verbally and non-verbally. And certainly what I take from what you've said in your question is that your child is truly at this time trying to communicate something. And the way that the child is communicating it is through those actions or lack thereof. So I want to dig a little bit more. The other question I do have also, does that happen just within the home? Is that happening at school where also she is not choosing to express herself in a manner that I think would be helpful to her? So the other thing too is you want to look at, is the conduct also being displayed in other venues? So is it just at home that you're seeing this conduct, or is the school also seeing the same thing too? I've been more concerned if it's being pervasive. If it's simply just one arena, then I think we have to look at what's happening in that arena as to why the conduct is being expressed. If it's happening pervasively, then that's for me is a greater concern. So that's my thought anyways in response to that particular question. I think clearly the parent has questions, and I think if that parent feels that there is a need for have more fulsome discussion with any of the support staff in her child's school, then clearly I believe she should reach out to her, the child's school's principal, and certainly steps and supports can be provided for that child if need be.
Yeah, that's a great point, Roy. And I will say that parents need to think about that when they read the answers or hear the answers that we're saying. These answers could change, or they may be different depending on, you know, how well you know the child, and I mean the professional. So these questions that are being answered sort of generally, but the more a person can get to know your child and understand, just like you as a parent know your child best, then, you know, the better the fulsome discussion you can have, and the better kind of direction. But it's really about working with you and your child. So if you still have questions, you know, reach out and consult with a professional. I know we did say we'd go over time a little bit, so I'm going to challenge us to do just one more question, and I'm going to ask the parents behind the scenes if they might comment. This is just like, what routines do you use, or how might you help your child if they're really kind of, you know, a little bit upset about the COVID restrictions, or they're not feeling very motivated? So what kinds of things, I guess, do you do to help? Is anybody out there able to give some ideas on that?
I can talk about that if you want, Paula.
Sure, Paula.
Okay, so again, I have 4 children and they all have their moods, and sometimes they're not good moods. And what I do sometimes is I know that my children love spending time outside. Now during COVID, that's not always the case, but when they're grumpy, I say we have to. So they get dressed and we go outside even though they're grumpy, and they feel better. And when we're outside and they're feeling better and they're happy, then I point out, remember you didn't want to come out here, and how do you feel now? So remember that next time. So perhaps doing activities that they know they like to do. And again, we've been trying to do a lot of games. I mentioned Kahoot earlier, but we've been, you know, dusting, taking out all those board games that were dusted up before and pulling them out and just trying. I have 4 children, so trying to get them to engage with one another, to help each other read or different things. And they don't always want to do it right away, especially when they're feeling grumpy. But if you know your child, then there are some things that you know they like to do, and when they get started, they usually feel better.
Great. So doing some things as a family and getting outside, and yeah, it's kind of a little bit of encouragement to do it, eh? Sometimes they don't feel like it, but they feel a lot better once you do it. And I think it's great to do something together. One-on-one quality time works really well too. Kind of make it special. Great idea. Okay, so I'm just going to post our final announcement. We would really love to hear from parents, not just whether you found tonight helpful, but I guess what other kinds of ways that, you know, topics that you'd like to hear, both from PIC or from our mental health teams here at PDSB. We'd like to hear from parents. We want to work with you so that we can support you better. So Paula, I believe that, is this the last slide here?
Yes, this is it. So we just want to thank everybody for being here, to all the attendees, all the parents, the people who made the time to be here, to all the volunteers, all the support staff, the people behind the scenes that you never saw, and the moderators, the administration, everyone who made this event possible. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you.